It's a glorious sunny December day, December the 10th. There's a cloud in the sky, but don't be fooled, because in the shade the temperature is -2 degrees Celsius. Where the sun hasn't penetrated, there's still a hard frost on the ground. I spend 2 or 3 days a week fishing our northern rivers for coarse fish, and in my case it usually involves sitting about waiting for a bite. And there's nothing worse than feeling cold and uncomfortable. And for me, that means having cold feet. If feet get cold, then it's time to go home. So today I'm going to look at boots for fishing in the winter time. When you type in winter boots for fishing on the internet, a list as long as your arm appears, each manufacturer extolling the virtues of their products. Now, what follows is based on my personal experience fishing northern rivers for coarse fish and what I am looking for in a winter boot. I don't want to be fiddling with wet, muddy laces, with numb hands, nor with Velcro fastenings, which seem to, well, everything seems to stick, so reducing the sort of effectiveness of the Velcro after time. And I'm still left with a sizable list of slip-on boots. Having considered their sort of ruggedness when fighting my way through the tangle of bankside vegetation, especially brambles which tend to get snagged up in your boots, have a look at their thermal properties, how warm they keep your feet. I've looked at reviews which other people have posted on the internet, and also considered the price. And at the end of all that, I've left with just 2. The first one are Skeetex thermal boots. I mean, these have been around for donkey's years. And the second one is the Vass R boot, which is a sort of relative newcomer to the winter scene. And let's look at them, each of these in more detail. I've had a pair of these for about 4 years now. I can't fault their ability to keep my feet warm. They've been very, very good. And they have a thick, removable fleece lining, which you can see there. And fishing at least twice a week, the removable fleece liners now need replacing. And when they're worn, they tend to come out when you take the boot off. You can sort of see down in there. Maybe you can't. What happens? It all rucks up like that. Makes it a bit difficult to get off. So I've just removed the liner, and there you can see how over time they wear away. I've got a great big hole in the back of these. So I've brought some replacement liners and just have a look at them. So there you can see the replacement liners against the original. They seem to be far more robust. Time will tell. And They have a sole to them, and you can see there the substantial fleece lining. The sole of the Skeetex boot looks incredibly thick. If I stick a tape down there, just reaches the bottom, and bring it out. You can see that it's a bit of an illusion. I've had these for 4 years, ploughing along unkempt riverbanks, like bankside vegetation, and there's no sign of wear and tear on the uppers. They're very robust. The other strange thing about them is you can wear them on either foot. There's no left or right. Both boots are identical. Contrary to some reviews I've read, I have no problems walking in these at all. Even considerable distances, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, grip on most surfaces is very good, but on steep, muddy banks and steep, grassy banks on rivers, they're not quite as secure, especially if you're walking across the steep slope. They don't have that grip. They don't have a heel kicker, we shall look at later. So they can be quite messy things to get off, especially when they're covered with claret. Well, let's have a look at the other one, the Vass boot. So on the right hand side is the Vass boot, and you can see the basic boot is identical to the one which they fit to their waders, a pair of which I have there. And you can see they have sort of reinforcement toes front there and on the sort of ankle, so they're very robust. And they have a thick faux fur lining, in case you're wondering what kind of furry creature a faux is. It's simply the word for false. So it's a false fur, synthetic, it's man-made lining. But the difference between this and the Skeetex is, this is non-removable. You cannot replace this. There you can see the difference in the thickness of the insulation between the Vass boot on the top side and the Skeetex boot at the bottom. It's quite substantial. But then again, there is a considerable difference in price, so you get what you pay for, I suppose. Another difference is they're only 3/4 tall. They're not as tall as the Skeetex. Another important consideration is that they do have a heel kicker, which you don't get on the Skeetex. And I'll talk more about them in a minute. And this is the sole pattern. So grip on most surfaces isn't a problem. But on steep, muddy or wet and grassy slopes on river banks, they're less secure. These three are size 9. A separate 3mm washable neoprene boot liner, which I've an image of there, is also available at extra cost. Now they're usually used in online boots and waders, but they could be used in the Vass R boot for additional insulation in extreme cold. I mean, I don't know how much wear and tear they will take or how comfortable they are, nor whether they fit any other manufacturer's boot, but that's an image of them there. Now, apart from keeping your feet warm, the other crucial thing for me is grip. Both boots have their limitations. You know, normal scrambling about, relatively flat surfaces, they're more than adequate. But as I said earlier, the dangers of slipping on muddy banks and hurting yourself, or sort of falling over and breaking some valuable gear, or God forbid, even worse, falling in, it's always a worry. And when floodwater or tidal water has receded on these rivers, you're left with an incredibly slippy layer of silt, fine silt, and that just enhances the danger. And I've been over on my backside twice so far this winter time. Fortunately, nothing worse than being covered by this slime. When you're fishing steep, muddy pegs like this in the winter time, then neither boot provides sufficient grip, and you're slipping and sliding all over the place. And many anglers resort to using crampons. You can see there where he's slipping and sliding today, and this is not as bad as it gets. Today they're quite dry. When the river's been up and goes back down again, all of this area is covered with a layer of silt, which is just like ice, really. Similarly, if you're fishing some tidal river like the Trent, you know, when the tide recedes, the whole bank is covered with a great layer of fine silt, which again is very difficult to stand up in. So crampons become the sort of de rigueur footwear. And to considerably reduce the risks, many anglers, including myself, are resorting to crampons, which are really cheap to buy. I was amazed how cheap they were. I don't know how long they'll last, time will tell. Unfortunately, as Skeetex thermal boots do not have a heel kicker, they cannot hold on crampons, without resorting to a sort of separate strap, which I found very inconvenient and not always secure. Probably loose crampons are probably worse than slipping on the back. You're more likely to trip over them. So, in conclusion, thermally, I think Skeetex boots are better in very, very cold conditions. But of course, as I said earlier, they're more expensive. So, and I like the ability to replace the fleece linings, the thermal linings in the Skeetex boot. But the one feature, the heel kicker, it's persuaded me to invest in a pair of Vass boots, which have just arrived, and I'll use these when I'm fishing in fishing on sort of parlous pegs, where slipping is a major concern. Whereas anywhere else, I'll use the Skeetex boot. So what I'm doing is I'm sacrificing warmth for safety on slippy pegs. Anyway, I'll let you know how I get on with them, particularly how well the Vass boot copes with crampons. But let's have a look at them fitted on. So this is the Skeetex boot, and you can see by the shape of the sole that the crampons are not a snug fit, a bit loose here, and of course, without having a heel kicker, they don't grip at the back, and so they immediately come off as soon as you start moving, which is not very satisfactory in my fishing situations in the winter time, and indeed sometimes in the summer when the banks are very slippy after a flood. Given that more and more anglers are using crampons, maybe Skeetex will have another look at it and redesign the sole so they will take crampons. So this is the Vass boot, and you can see that the crampons are a much tighter fit at the front. And nice neat fit there, but the crunch is these particular crampons, and I'm not suggesting it happens to all crampons, they fit snugly over this heel kicker at the back, so they're less likely to come off. But not having tried them, I'll let you know in a future video how well they worked. The Skeetex thermal boot is quite heavy, and but they do a lighter boot. This is it, the Skeetex Ultralight. But it's not as robust as the thermal boot. The upper is made of a different material. But if you're not flogging your way through brambles and thistles and goodness knows what else is on the bank, then that there might be worth considering. It doesn't have a fleece lining. I think it's a neoprene lining, but you'd have to check that yourself. Well, that's my look at winter boots, and they're purely my personal opinions. Make up your own mind about them. And so I'll give these Vass boots with their crampons, I'll give them a sort of trial on the bank and see how I get on with them. But if you just want warm winter boots and you're not skating around on slippy pegs, then the Skeetex boot, which I've had for 4 years, I can strongly support that. It's just the safety factor which comes into consideration every now and then, which lets it down. Anyway, that's it for now. My feet are frozen. I'm going to get wrapped around the fire. See you again. Take care. Bye bye.